Today I'm going to talk to you about the dating of the New Testament and why it is important. A year ago, I came across a book by J.A.T. Robinson called Redating the New Testament. He went into the New Testament to try and figure out the accepted dates for each of the books to see the evidence for those dates. He realized there was no rhyme or reason for the dates given, so he decided to do his own dating. His book is available to read and download for free online. He came up with a much earlier date for all the books of the New Testament, including Revelation. What was the most striking to him in his research was the lack of mention of the fall of Jerusalem in 70 AD. This was a really cataclysmic event. It was huge. The siege of Jerusalem started in 66 AD and went on for years, leading finally to the destruction of Jerusalem and the destruction of the temple, the second temple, which Jesus in one of the Gospels alluded to, that none of the stones would be on top of each other. Nothing is bigger than this event, but why was there no mention of it in any of the New Testament books? So he was led to believe that the books of the New Testament were already written and circulating before that date. Jesus died and ascended into heaven around 33 AD, which means within 30 years of the New Testament were already written. In history, this is huge. Alexander the Great's story was written some 400 years after his death, and we still regard it as historical. And of course, we know the Quran and Muhammad's Sirah was written at least 150 years later. Even this was doubtful, it could be much later, but Muslims worship and revere him and treat it like, it's the truth. And William Albright, a biblical archaeologist, say emphatically that none of the New Testament were written after 75 AD. We have proved that the book of Acts was completed around 60 to 62 AD. We know also definitively that Luke wrote the book of Acts. He also wrote the Gospel according to Luke. The claim by the higher criticism people like Rudolf Bultmann that the Gospels were just a bunch of pericopes or lessons strung together much later by unknown editors is false and without merit. It was an antichrist hypothesis. The shameful part is that modern theologians and preachers still subscribe to it as if it were the gospel truth. This is such a shame. All one has to do is to read the prologue to Luke's gospel to realize how wonderful our Lord Jesus is. And I read to you the prologue of Luke's gospel. Many have undertaken to draw up an account of the things that have been fulfilled among us, just as they were handed down to us by those who from the first were eyewitnesses and servants of the word. Therefore, since I myself have carefully investigated everything from the beginning, it seems good to me to write an orderly account for you, most excellent Theophilus, so that you may know with certainty of the things you have been taught. Luke chapter 1, verses 1 to 4. It is widely accepted by critical and conservative scholars that 1 Corinthians was written around 55 to 56 AD. That means that if Jesus rose in 33, it is within a quarter century after the crucifixion, a quarter century, less than 25 years of the event. And we know that Paul's letters were earlier than the Gospels. The letters to the Thessalonians were the earlier than Corinthians. And if Corinthians is so early, within less than 25 years of our Lord Jesus' ascension, that means Thessalonians is even earlier, 20 years before That is huge in history. And Luke's gospel, if we say the book of Acts is around 60, 62, and the gospel of Luke is before the book of Acts, written by the same person, Luke, then we could mean the book of Acts, the book of Luke was written around 55 AD. Again, 22 years. This is massive. See, that's why to criticize the Bible, the New Testament, we have to say that it's late. Yeah, it's so late, but there's no reason for that lateness. If we have proof that some of these letters of Paul, the date of it, the book of Acts, if we already have this, we can work backwards and see how early all these were. And this is massive in the sense that why? 1 Corinthians 15 definitely say that they were, when Jesus died, rose again, he appeared to many people, to his apostles, to his brother James, and at one time to 500 people at the same time. And many of them are alive. It's like, that means the closer you are to the event, that means your memory is not clouded. You can say, I remember it like it was yesterday. That's how powerful it is. And secondly, if there's less time between the event and the writing, then there's less reason to fudge anything. If it's the longer it is, your memory fails you and you could make up things. So there's less fudging there. And it is huge. We need to know these things, because if you don't, when someone throws it at you, oh, it's written so late. John is like late 1st century if they're kind to you, or early 2nd century if they're not. That means a long time has passed. That means they can, whoever wrote John can fudge things and make up the theology to make it fit. But we need to know this, that's not the truth. The truth is, it's very early, never before. And the eyewitnesses that are still alive, it's just massive. Not just after his death, during his life. Imagine, Jesus' territory was Judea, a small area, only to the Jews. Remember that I have come to the Jews, but when I've been lifted up, then only will I draw all men to me. But at the moment, my mission is towards the Jews. That means it's a very small area. That means someone or everyone, most people would have heard of him, if not attended at least one or more of his teachings in wherever area he was in, one or more of his healings and seeing, if not being healed, one or more of his feeding. Remember, at one time there were 5,000 people, another time 4,000. So think, these were eyewitnesses of his life, and they're still alive when some of these books were being written. Albeit Luke says, maybe it was later, but he says there were people have already written about his life. There were other gospels floating around, albeit they didn't get into the New Testament. Luke said, I read them, and some of these people who wrote are still alive. I interviewed them. It's like so really, as Luke write the Gospel and Book of Acts was written to a person called Theophilus, possibly a high-ranking Romans or whatever, but regardless, it's written to the whole world, to you and I, and said, so that you may know, O Theophilus, with certainty, not just you, most excellent Theophilus, you, me, that we may know with certainty the things you have been taught. And we need to get a hold of this narrative and not let other people write the narrative and the story for us, that we are called to be apologists, to give an apologia, as Peter says, of the reason why we believe in simple stories. We don't have to make up fresh things. There's no need for that. I pray that this has blessed you as it has blessed me. I'm about to celebrate the first anniversary of this channel. I can't imagine that it's been that long and that I'm still hard at work. And the thing is, I am the most person to gain. I gain the most from it. My faith is stronger. That 3 years ago, I could go to church and defend my position. I was scared of them. They came at me. But today, I know with certainty what I've been taught and am able to speak up.